resolved. After the independent marketers said that they've been lifting the product from private depots at 200 naira per liter, and so they could not sell for under 170 naira depot. Well, what's your thoughts on this?
It's really a, let's call it jamba justice of a story, because, as they say, this is not ending well. Now, what has happened now? NNPC, okay, which is now a private company, has made moves to ensure that literally petrol is lifted at the depots at 148, which was what it was designated for before now. Okay. Now, when it's lifted at 148, it should arrive at the pump, at least in terms of Lagos and Abuja, at between 175 185. Okay. Now, um, this, they said, they made a move to stem the challenge that the independent petroleum marketers had mentioned, that despite the DSS directive or threats that they would start arresting them if they didn't normalize distribution, um, that it will allow them to sell at the prescribed rates. Now, prior to this time, the independent petroleum marketers that make up the bulk of the petrol stations around the country did state that they were lifting at 200.
Mm.
And if they lift at 200,
Then they
obviously
cannot sell under
yes, they
that
would
price.
sell at 220. And if they have logistic concerns, it'll come up to 250, and in some places 300. I mean, I was in the around the country recently, last week. At Enugu, it was at 230. Onitsha was at 250. Port Harcourt, it was at 260, depending on the station that you went to. Now, the this scarcity also has been addressed by the NNPC, as well as the regulatory agency, that's the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Upstream Downstream Regulatory Authority. They said they will work with the DSS and the police to ensure that all stations nationwide sell at the prescribed rates. Now, you see, the problem here is this, and I know in some locations, some people have started seeing the ease on the petrol stations. I remember last night at one of the stations on Awolowo Road, I asked and I saw that there were no queues. Now, is this the situation nationwide? Because it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. It takes a little while for this ease in distribution to be noticed. The point is this: if this could have been done, why was this gap allowed to fester? The NNPC obviously knows and keeps track of how much fuel is sold at the depots. Why did they allow this gap to happen and suffered Nigerians untold hardship? I mean, in my trips, we had to spend over an hour or two in some locations just to fuel up along the way. Many Nigerians in various locations, many states, had to, instead of going to work or their businesses, had to be stuck at petrol stations fighting for fuel, both in their cars and in jerry cans. And you know, this is the Yuletide season, so it means it's a direct increase on transportation as well as food stuff.
Joel, when you say Nigerians, and here's the thing,
Mm.
don't you just mean Lagosians?
No, it was nationwide.
Because we've seen this and it's been on and off over
Mhm.
this past year, and we've made mention of it here on Freshly Press in other states in the country. It's just here in Lagos that we're feeling the
No,
what's the word
no,
I'm looking for?
the news doesn't go around. Like I said, I traveled within Nigeria last week, and there were queues everywhere.
Hmm.
Point of reference: we were in Benin for 2 hours and we bought in the outskirts at 190, simply because to go into Benin you would be buying it at about 200 and something. Now, my point is this distribution inefficiencies. Why did the NNPC and the regulatory agency, as well as the Ministry of Petroleum, allow this to happen? Many of the marketers operate under demand and supply principles, and that's what they've been clear about. Now, the real issue is this: it's not even about this little, what I call it, stitch in time that happened. The real issue to be resolved, which, if not resolved, will continue biting us from the backside, is the subsidy gradual removal. If you haven't dealt with that, we're going to have this issue going back and forth. How did the depot price shift? It shifted because some subsidies were not paid. Therefore, lifting price was left at the dollar exchange rate between the terminal and the depots. That's what shifted the price. The marketers have no other option than to add the usual prices to it, which takes it up. NNPC is fully aware about this. So now that they've made the move, why didn't they make it since? Secondly, in the long run, they are going to have to gradually remove that subsidy because we know the federal government is literally broke. I mean, there's so many details from the Ministry of Finance to confirm that. The CBN has also made his own statements. NNPC has also made his own statements. So why don't we get on with it so that we can work with the plan that everybody can sign up to? And then lastly, the crude oil theft, which is literally the main reason why the federal government is literally broke at this time. We're not making as much as we used to. We're literally on 50% income supply. These are the real root causes of our problems. And until we get up, agree as a nation that let's find a workable plan out of this, we're going to be having constant scarcities coming up now and then.
Let's move on now. Guardian newspaper: federal government slams Atiku over comment on Boko Haram. This was yesterday. We heard from the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, in response to the presidential candidate of the PDP, the People's Democratic Party, who was quoted as saying that he couldn't understand the Boko Haram phenomenon and why Boko Haram continued to operate. The Minister of Information and Culture said that he should throw the question to his party, the PDP, and I quote, under whose watch the Boko Haram insurgency started in 2009 and festered.
Hmm. As usual, political parties, especially the majors, APC and the PDP, will go at it, barbs, jabs, just to score cheap political points that fall on nobody. Now, in this instance, Atiku made some statements during his town hall meeting, which puts APC in bad light, and the APC in their scorecard meetings threw the jobs back at the PDP as to they should answer questions of how they allowed Boko Haram to flourish in their own tenure. Now, you see, both share blames when the PDP was in government, when the APC was in government. And both the biggest blame that is shared across the two is that till date, insurgency still exists. There are many kidnapped people that haven't been rescued. Many lives have been lost, properties damaged. It has even flourished into banditry and herdsmen attacks. And the sponsors, which is the greatest issue, the sponsors of this evil menace on Nigeria have not been fished out. I mean, we know how much the federal government, in quote, has claimed they have not been part of in terms of what do you call it, ransoms that have been paid. At the end of the day, we never find out who is behind this. And the point here is that you mean somebody somewhere can come and unleash menace on Nigerians, and at the end of the day, we will even pay our way out of it and never find out who's behind it. Any government that can't guarantee internal security is not worth its salt. They are weak. They're either weak or complicit.
Now, Devo, what I would want to ask is this: we've seen that terrorism is a global phenomenon at this point, and yes, in several African countries, we're seeing that terrorist groups are uh, doing fantastic business for themselves, terrible business for the country, but it speaks to the fact that it is not that as easy as somebody from the outside might think it is to win the war against terrorism, is it?
Sometimes I'm careful about what when we just when we use these what they call blanket statements.
Okay.
Initially when this insurgency started, the blame was on, oh, people came from Libya, weapons came from out of the country,
Mhm.
oh, I swapped,
Foreign elements.
foreign elements were at
Yes.
work in Nigeria, and we literally didn't take responsibility. Eventually, when it escalated into banditry, it took a while before government officials started claiming, okay, we know these people, we've always known them, etc. That's my issue. For a long time, we've made it look like they're ghosts. By the way, the people they have caught and claimed that they're insurgents or that they're Boko Haram elements are ragtag operatives. Are you telling me that those are the people who took down and have given our Nigerian military, Navy, Air Force, and Army combined the tough time? Come on. I need us to get to a point whereby to some extent, not only do we know who we're dealing with, we also know those responsible. How have they been able to finance the terrorism? How have they been able to get the weapons that they get? How have they, remember sometimes when they overran some military bases, they came in over 250 bikes. Those are not things that are invisible. How come they were able to dissipate into thin air and nobody was able to catch them? These are questions that will allow us to say that okay, the country is on top of this issue, not just to just claim, oh well, we've been able to subdue here and there, but information is managed. Then at the end of the day, we say, well, we've done our best. No, we need to know what we're dealing with as a nation, and I think more could have been done.
But also, let's laud what has been done and the fact that uh, there were gains that have been made, and in the last 1 year and a few months, over 82,000 of the terrorists, their wives, and children surrendered to the Nigerian authorities.
Mhm.
There's that. The fact that we have heard about the federal government, the Attorney General of the Federation, Minister of Justice, revealing the federal government is going to be mass prosecuting Boko Haram suspects as well. So there's
That,
that. Little things, little
that
drops make
never
an
happens.
ocean.
That never happens. We've not seen
Little
one
drops make an
prosecution.
ocean.
The list
That's
that the UAE released for terrorism sponsors, no prosecution was done.
well,
No, even we don't even know who we're talking about. If not that the UAE released those names.
Malami says that funds have been approved. All right, let's move on now. This next one comes in. And you remember, I'll be reading your messages in just a bit on 0809 up on youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos on the live chat, and of course using the hashtag FreshlyPressed981 on Twitter. Let me take one more story, then we'll take a break and get back in with the messages. This one coming in from this day news, business day rather, how Nigerians are coping with rising prices and inflation. Because we have seen inflation numbers surging to the highest in 17 years, forcing cash-strapped consumers to adapt their coping mechanisms to deal with the pressures.
Well, you see, this issue of tightening our belt, it's been with us for almost 30 years. One government to the other has said tighten your belt austerity measures, and which basically means we've had to cope with tougher conditions of welfare and living in this country. Now, beyond the insecurity, the economic scenario has made life even harder for many. And I'd like to point out that when they released a report on multidimensional poverty, it's not just about
Mhm.
poor people, it also is cascaded commensurately with even the middle class, which has thinned out across the years. So basically, um, many people have been forced to live in conditions that they normally wouldn't choose to. So, for example, some of the consumer patterns that people have seen are that either people are attempting to buy in bulk just to store to see because the price will shift within a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, those who buy in bulk are only those who have money. The people who don't have
That too.
enough money to buy in bulk. Some who believe that maybe they can buy in credits, and that means you have to pay up in the long run, or you join a food club, or you do a job, or you come together as a group to be able to buy in bulk so you can enjoy some level of discounts. Now, with inflation climbing so fast, I think it's about 22 percent as of the last count, it makes it extremely difficult because most times by the time you get back to the market, the price has shifted again, especially with staple foods like rice, like beans, like flour for bread, like basic protein, like chicken, eggs, and even beef. It's become extremely difficult. Now, this is compounded with the fact that despite the currency issue, the insecurity issue has made it difficult for a lot of farmers to even distribute their goods or get it to places that it should get there. That is, if they even have a harvest.
Let's not talk about the. Let's not even talk about the effects of flooding on the harvest.
Yes. So, which is a climate related affair. Now, the truth is, these are once in a while, it's good to highlight these things. I know so many people who, before they used to take cabs to work or to their places of business, now they can't afford it. It's almost like triple the price, so they have to take buses. And there are those who can't even afford the bus fares. So maybe someone who used to move from mainland to island every day of the week to get some business done has to now select, okay, I can't go 5 days a week. I'm only going to be able to go like 3 days. And then some of us have adjusted to, if you can, if you have the facilities to work from home, so that you don't have to end up paying transportation from one location to the other. I mean, let's bring it home. I know how much we used to spend to get to this studio in those days. Right now, as I
Uh-huh.
mentioned to Miriam yesterday, the fee has really, really gone up. So the sacrifice is even, it's even choking even more.
The
Yeah.
belt has no more notches,
Oh
people.
my. Oh my.
We've got to take a break. We'll be back, and I'll be reading your messages up on the different platforms: WhatsApp, YouTube, and Twitter.
You're toggling.
I'm not. See ya. The numbers you gave me,
Uh,
6287. Those are the numbers I'm taking.
is that what I said?
Yes,
No, no, I
6287.
was saying
That is
six
what you
backwards.
said. You said six backwards. Then I asked you, does that mean 654321? You now look through the stories and you said
Oh, okay,
6287.
no problem.
I write it down so
No
that we
problem.
don't have this. Okay, so now that you have
So,
seen the effect of words, what would you like to do?
okay, let me just go to the.
Because right now we've got IG meets Security Committee, that's number 3. Senate postpones hearing on cash withdrawals, 4. Abuse the Naira and go to jail, 5.
Yes, the abuse the naira, the Senate's issue or withdrawal.
Okay, abuse the Naira and withdrawal. So I will start off with that one. And we are in. All right, let's get in with those messages. I'll start off with this one. Dami from Ikeja says, so Uncle Lai is still blaming the PDP for almost 8 years of his party's mishandling of security. Religious extremism and political violence is part and parcel of Nigeria's history. We are them, they are us. Fabian from Ekbe says it shows poor leadership for those in power to continue to lay the blame for their failure to contain Boko Haram insurgency on a past government rather than doing a rethink on the way forward. Have they used the BVN, NIN, network providers, security, etc. to the best of their ability? Joseph from Silver Estate says the right now what we're seeing from the government is insincerity in dealings. We talk of subsidy, yet here half of the crude meant for revenue is stolen daily. No arrest or anything to the people involved in the crime. So the issue of subsidy removal will face with the opposition due to accountable doubts. Interesting. Um, Cisco Delgado Cisco Delgado says, Devo, I feel you. APC have failed completely as far as banditry, insecurity, kidnapping, and insurgencies are concerned, in Cisco's opinion. And Tayo says it's the same government that's telling us unknown gunmen and the sorts are now passing the buck. That's telling us unknown gunmen and the sorts are now passing the buck of their responsibility. 2023 is no joke. Vote wisely. People now walk to their final destination because last mile transportation is now expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Tayo also says this in from Deji, who says the blame game seems to be the default setting for the party, for these parties, no ownership. It's sad because this is going to continue for another 4 years. That's the whole point of your card and your votes. Make sure it doesn't. Okay, who else do we have? This is a very long one from Yinka Bulu. I might need to take a little extra time to read through that. Victor Shion says Nigeria should set up a national border guard. We can tackle internal security without. We can't tackle internal security without a secured border. Victor Shion says. All right, let's take this next one in from the Guardian newspaper. Abuse the naira and go to jail. The CBN warns. This happened yesterday in Abuja, saying that those abusing the naira were liable to go to jail. The principal manager for currency operations department at the bank, Apex Bank, Mrs. Ngozi Etim, gave the warning when she spoke with the news agency of Nigeria. And this obviously referenced Section 23, Subsection 3 of the CBN Act 2007, providing that mishandling of the naira is a punishable offense with 6 months imprisonment or a fine of 50,000 naira. Devo, some people might ask, is there any naira to manhandle and abuse? Because a number of people have reported that actually just going to the ATMs ever since the announcement of the new notes and whatnot, that going to the ATMs, they can't find money.
Well, maybe that's panic withdrawals, but it will take effect from January. However, you see, the CBN, if they like, they should print this warning on a billboard and paste it around Nigeria. It will fall on deaf ears. And for the lack of a better statement, we've been hearing this warning from CBN for God knows how long. The problem is the CBN lacks the power to enforce this policy because in this instance, culture outweighs their capacity or the willingness of Nigerians to comply. And simply put, Nigerians take pride in spraying cash. I mean, and if you don't spray, it's even seen as an offense to the organizer or to the person who invited you to the social gathering or the other. And it's usually done. I mean, who are those that have cash? It's usually done in events of high, middle class, and upper class Nigerians. This is a reality. Okay? Now, for the CBN to actually realize this goal of getting this policy out, they're either going to work with the police for stern enforcement, which I highly much doubt. Remember, by the way, most times you can't even get mint at the banks. Mint, for some funny reason, shows up.
Devo, we've been getting it because
Okay,
it's
you've
the
been
new
getting.
old notes.
Yes, it's the new old notes
They're like, use them while we got them.
that people kept stashed away. Now they're coming back into circulation. However, either they're going to get stern about the enforcement or they're going to have to look at some way of influencing culture. Okay, Nigerians are going to have to look for a new way to show how they can gift, okay, and still look proud about it. I have to say this, that I mean, spraying is something that we do culturally, okay, within the country. It's not done in most other nations. And like I said, we take pride in it. The question is, what other ways can Nigerians show love, show affection, or the flip side from the givers? In which other ways can you show who you are in a public gathering without spraying money about?
Right.
Are you going to maybe give out watches? Are you going to give out diamond rings? Is there any other item? Because that's the whole idea here. Because this is what the CBN is up against. I am a big man. I want to show my nephew or my niece who is getting married that uncle has arrived, and I want everybody to watch me. How else can I do that? And I think it's a topic that should be taken up on social platforms to be able to get to this point so that we can move away from the destruction of Naira and the stepping of Naira as the CBN gladly desires.
Mm. Taya says we love spraying money so much we have spray guns at events
You
and
see,
gatherings.
we're
The
even getting innovative in the spray.
The habits only evolved; it wasn't tamed. And Yinka Bolu, I've looked through the message, says, Devo, I think it would be unfair for us to conclude that nothing has been done with respect to bringing Boko Haram in check. I have a brother who's a part of a unit that was part of the action in the Northeast, and I can tell you for sure that the military have done a lot for us as a country. That he's alive today is another testimony. However, that war is a war no one can use a singular approach to combat because of the factors around it. Even if you prosecute those on the admissions list sent by the UAE, how do you deal with the guerrilla nature of the war? How do you deal with the sympathy that Boko Haram enjoy from some parts? The bordering countries of Niger and Chad are another problem, and the case of instability in Libya did cause real problems for a fact. So let's be fair in judging them. Could they have done better in handling things? Yes. For instance, not ending the contract with the private merchants, but that's not to say that the federal government did nothing.
Okay, right. Nobody said they did nothing. We're trying to say they could have done a whole lot more, and the gaps are very wide.
Senate postpones hearing on cash withdrawal limits. This one in from the Punch newspaper happened yesterday. And the Red Chamber had last week commissioned the committee to grill the two newly reappointed deputy governors of the Central Bank of Nigeria during their screening session. However, at plenary yesterday, a member of the committee, Senator Olubumi Adetumbi of APC Ekiti North, said that they wouldn't be able to brief the House as the chairman of the committee was not around. Postponement.
Yes, major story. Now, you know how the news of the cash withdrawal limit policy has generated a lot of commotion among Nigerians because of the implications.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me tie this to the last story. We also it's not because we're trying to be what do you call the word? We're just trying to complain and lament and just rant. We're not supposed to be thanking government for doing their job. And when they haven't done it well, we need to mount pressure. In this instance, this issue that you expected your representatives, that's the National Assembly, to speak on, to see what they can do, to either see how it can be in the interest of Nigerians. The committee that was meant to discuss it yesterday couldn't discuss it. They had to reschedule because their chairman, Senator Ubasani, went for the APC rally in Kaduna State. Now, some other senators chided the committee for that, saying that Nigerians have been complaining. A lot of noise has come around this, that it's not fair that the Senate has to reschedule, whereas the issue that bothers Nigerians most is at hand. And the Senate president actually defended that position, saying that it wasn't fair that that senator raised that issue, that the Senate had done a lot to respond to Nigerians. Well, the thing is this, right? Um, the cash withdrawal policy is a matter of national urgency because of how many Nigerians will be affected. Okay, and when I say affect, I'm sure you've been hearing the news of how we'll be able to collect more than 20K, or for those in business,
Mm-hmm.
how do I make transactions, especially those who use it, even with the online or the electronic transactions. Banks haven't gotten to the level of seamless reconciliations. So you have many people with their complaints of, oh, this transfer didn't go through, or money was received, but the balance is not there. I didn't get alerts, blah, blah,
Yes,
blah, blah, blah.
yes.
So,
And also the amount of time it takes for these reversals to be made.
yes. Now, you see, this requires a sense of urgency if you have put a date as to when this policy will be implemented. So, the issue is this: I'm not seeing a sense of urgency with this current National Assembly. And this is speaking to the Senate president who was trying to defend that the Senate had been fair. No, it's not just in this issue, in many, many issues. I mean, last time the country was boiling and they went on recess. So before they leave, and I'm saying this outrightly, all the biting national issues, from insecurity to the crude oil theft to the subsidy gradual removal to the FX subsidy policy to the electricity subsidy policy and the lack of power in the country, the National Assembly literally should not sleep until they have made some positive change in that regard.
All right, we've come to the end of the show, but not the end of the messages. So very quickly, let me put some of them in. Uh, Goody up on Twitter says, if the president and presidency can give marching orders to MDAs, etc., and they don't comply, what makes the DSS and the reps think their orders will be complied with? Nigerians, your liberation is in your hands. Vote right in 2023. Victor Sheon says, spraying the naira is not the issue. Fishmongers and butchers handle the naira worse. Shei says, concerning these new notes, I expect the CBN to culture us into the unavailability of 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes slowly. But if you go to the ATM, you'll still get 1,000 naira notes dispensed. So, there. All right, we've come to the end of the
Yes, sir.
show. Thank you, Devu, for the analysis. Always look forward to Wednesday mornings. And yes, coming up, 8:15, we will be talking sports inside the locker room.
But
Bye.